to talk about baseball. And not just any baseball, the best part of the baseball season. We got the playoffs. MLB playoffs are underway. Some of the opening games are still going through right now. Some of the opening wildcard series getting underway. We'll take a quick look here at the bracket. The ones that are set so far, we got Detroit beating Houston, Kansas City beating the Orioles, and then on the NL side, we do have the Mets taking on the Brewers and the Padres taking on the Braves. So, Kelsey, I'm going to go ahead and let you lead the way because, well, neither one of our teams are in here, but your team's been in the playoffs a lot more often than mine has. How are we feeling right now? Obviously, we can't go exact predictions here, so we got to let a couple of those games play out, but we can get a hunch at least. We can get a feel for it.
Yeah, this is one where I'll start with the AL since those are done. I think it's just safe to go here. Detroit and what they're doing is an impressive feat. I do believe they have to win one more to advance. Maybe I'm not right about that. I thought it was a 5-game series. Is it only a 3-game series?
The first ones are just 3.
Wow. All right. So 3-game series they've won already. That's it was surprising, but at the same time, Detroit with their hot start their hot last. I shouldn't say start. It is the last 3 months of the season has propelled them here, and this goes into a divisional matchup with the Guardians, and that's maybe not the best thing if you're the Guardians. And that scares me. But I will say, the Guardians fans are out there. I know they are. They're literally right down the road from me. You guys have a pretty easy road here. So I'm going to start with the AL, and I'm going to start with that matchup. I'm going to think the Guardians can slow down this Detroit Tigers team. I like what the Tigers have been doing, but I think it's time for those wheels to come off. Cleveland has been a good team all year long. The fact that Jose Ramirez wasn't given the opportunity to go triple 40s, shocking. Just from the fan perspective, that's a crime against humanity.
Should be punishable by the Geneva Convention. This is a catastrophe.
Yeah, but this is going to be a good series. Now this one I know is a 7-game series, so I do believe this one ends up 4-2 with the Guardians pulling this one out. It's not going to go to a game 7, but I do think this one is going to be a really good series from all around. But that's going to take me down to the bottom. New York, Kansas City. Kansas City getting past Baltimore as easy as they did, shocking in a way. Considering that was my pick to be in the World Series, hurts me a little bit. But those Yankees, man, they're hard to deal with. If there's a team on this entire board that has to deal with New York, though, I do think Kansas City has that opportunity. Bobby Witt Jr. is no joke. Him and Aaron Judge one-on-one going against each other every game. It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be high-powered teams. These offenses are going to be really good this postseason, and it's going to be whichever team has the best pitching performance. I do think that does lean a little bit more towards the Yankees with Nestor Cortez and their entire lineup of pitchers. So I'm going to say Yankees and Guardians in CS. And out of that, I'm just going to go ahead and spoil it. I have the Guardians moving past the Yankees because why not? Maybe make Cleveland a little happier than being the mistake on the lake. So DJ, before I go into the NL, I'll let you go ahead and talk about the AL.
So I'll go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off out of the gate too. Guardians in Detroit's very interesting because Scooball's arguably the best pitcher in baseball right now. If not, he's right there in the thick of it. That being said, the Guardians might have the second or third best offense in baseball, which is completely hilarious considering last year they would go what felt like weeks without getting a hit. Now it feels like they don't even go at bats without getting a home run at points. The way their offense completely flipped on its head over the course of a year. Without a whole lot of change on top of it. It's a lot of the same cast of characters just playing out of their minds. So I'm going to go with the Guardians. I think we're going to go 3-1 because it's with it being a 5-game series for the DS. We're going to go Guardians 3-1. I think Detroit will take like game 2. Then the Guardians will get kind of going and clean it up. So I'm with you at the Guardians. Kansas City, New York. New York should run away with this 3-0. But there's something interesting about Kansas City that when I look at them, I do like Bobby Witt. And I'm for the sake of being different too. I'm gonna say Kansas City takes it in 5. I think the fact that they beat Baltimore, the Orioles were like you. They were my favorite to get to the World Series. I had them in the World Series last year as our predictions. The fact that they kind of flamed out the way they did is shocking. But I think a lot of that does have to do with they drew the Kansas City Royals, not the Kansas City Chiefs. That I almost accidentally said. Not that. But I do think the Royals can find a way to get it done against the Yankees, who are they are extremely top heavy. Like their top 3 or 4 players are as good as anybody's. But I think after that, that's where Kansas City can get, for lack of better terms, that's where they can get them. So I'm going to go with the Kansas City Royals to win in 5. So we're going to set up a Guardians and Royals ALCS. This one's going to go 6. We're going to say the Guardians find a way to advance to the World Series. I know Kansas City was a thorn in their side at points during the regular season. I think that'll change a little bit during postseason. And Guardians kind of feel like that team like the Diamondbacks last year, like the Rangers as well. Like maybe not the favorites going in, but a really, really good team that almost feels overlooked at times. So I think they can kind of be that one that I won't say a surprise because they are the 2nd seed in the AL and they were a game from being the number 1 seed. But I'm going to say the Guardians find a way to sneak their way into the World Series.
All
I
right.
say
All right.
sneak,
So
even though they're the 2 seed. It's very
yeah.
counterintuitive. But when you look at like Dodgers, Yankees, even the Orioles, Astros, every other team that was probably more thought of than they were until right now. When you look at it, it's like, Detroit, you should handle. You lose 1 to Screwball, then you win the rest of them. You should. The Royals and the Yankees should beat the what out of each other, which you would get a fresher matchup against them. They drew a better hand, I think, like you mentioned earlier. It's a better hand than what it could have been.
Yeah. Yeah. Easily much better hand. So yeah, I mean, so we both got Guardians. All right. I like it. By the way, just to update on the games that are currently ongoing, which Atlanta is currently up 1-0 over San Diego as we're recording this, and the Mets up 3-1 in the 4th over the Brewers. So San Diego and Atlanta is in the first, by the way. So with that said, Mets, I'm going to say they advance. We'll start there. I think they get past the Brew Crew, which is going to set them up against Philly. And then for the other game, 5 versus 4, so Atlanta versus San Diego. I don't care who gets out of that series. You're not advancing past the Dodgers. I'm sorry. As much as I hate the Dodgers, what they're doing right now and specifically what Shohei is doing to people is embarrassing for the rest of baseball. And I don't mean that in a bad way. What he's doing is ungodly and should never be underestimated. We talked about Pete Rose and his legacy early on. Shohei is leaving a single season legacy that will never be forgotten. He is the first man to go 50-50, and he probably is the last man to go 50-50 if he doesn't do it again. So that's how wild of a season it is. And by the way, didn't throw it all this season. Could throw in the playoffs.
He gave up pitching to become the best hitter in baseball. Kind of hilarious. Like, you know what? I'll go from
Yeah.
being a top pitcher. I'm just going to go be the best hitter instead.
Yeah, I can't throw this season because of my injury. So you know what? We'll just hit. But he could throw in the playoffs. Let's not just scrape by that. That gives an extra dimension to what is already a really, really good LA pitching staff. And I think that's going to set up no matter who goes against them. So I have LA matching up against the winner of the Philly and New York series, which for me, I think Philly has had too much time off. As much as I love the idea of Castellanos literally hitting a home run in every stupidly serious moment in the world, I think the Mets they've been on a run. It's just like Detroit. How long can they sustain it? I think the Mets do get past Philly, but it's going to be a close one. I think that's going to go to 7. And the Mets are just going to get that one. Frankie Lindor is still Frankie Lindor. He's finally back again, it seems like. And the rest of that team seems to be playing well. Jose Iglesias was on like a 25 game hit streak up until the last game of the wild card or the play-in game with the Braves. So very impressive all around this team offensively and pitching. So for me, I have the Mets beating Philly in 7 to face off against the Dodgers. And for them, that's a clean sweep. I have the Dodgers advancing to the series to face the Guardians.
Okay. I dig it. So I'll go Mets and the Brewers. Just for the sake of what it looks like right now, I'll say the Mets get out of there in the same vein. I still think the Phillies find a way to get through. I think like you mentioned, the time off is a little concerning, but I also look at it that last handful of years, they kind of kick it into a second gear once the playoffs arrive. And this year, they happen to do it with a really good regular season. So I'm going to say they get past the Mets. I'm going to say it's a weird 5-game series, though. I think they get them 3-2. I think it takes the full 5 games, which is odd. You wouldn't expect that, and has people concerned. Dodgers, I don't care if they play the Braves and the Padres, they're going to sweep both of them. Maybe one of them steals a game. Like they could play both of them in the same week, and the Dodgers are winning.
They'll win. They'll win a majority of those games.
Exactly. Like if they played each team in a series of 3, they would probably win 5 of the 6 games or something ridiculous like that. So we'll have Dodgers taking on the Phillies. Phillies match up very weirdly with the Dodgers. Obviously, the Dodgers are better in favor, but it feels like the Yankees and the Royals, but the Phillies are better. Like they have a lot more firepower. Their pitching staff isn't. It's good and it's good.
Oh, their pitching
It's
staff is
good.
one of the best in
Like
the.
it's. I'm thinking that I'm trying to say it's good. I was to say it's not good enough to stop the Dodgers, but it's good enough to at least not let them go ballistic. It's good
Yeah.
enough to not let them go scorched earth. And they have the firepower to match that. So it'll be a 7-8 type of game every single time. Like you bet the over. Like that's this entire
Yeah.
series. But I'm gonna say Phillies take that one in 6. I'm gonna say it goes 6 and they find a way to. They just always, honestly, the way the world's going, Nick Castellanos is gonna hit like 6 home runs during that series. There's a lot going on now. And there's a lot to be going on, and he has a knack for it. So trust Nick Castellanos too. Just make light of a very interesting world that we're in. So we're gonna have the Phillies taking on the Guardians for me. So we both got the Guardians in there, but you haven't taken on the West Coast. I haven't taken on the East Coast adjacent.
Yeah, and I said this is a good team early on in the season, the Guardians, and I said the Dodgers are a good team in the NL, and they're going to be hard to get past for anybody. I don't think the Guardians could have asked for a worse matchup if they end up in this situation, and it's everything you could have hoped against,
Hmm.
and that the reason why is in Cleveland, there is no doubt a power alley to right field. Shohei Ohtani, left-handed hitter, pulls the ball to the right field. The rest of that offense hits well to the right side of the field. You kind of playing like Yankee Stadium a couple years back, and any home game is now turns into a fly ball fest to right field and see what can happen, which is not good for the Guardians. They have a good offense. Is it good enough to keep up with 5-6 runs a game? Don't think so. So, with that said, if they can keep the score low, different story. They have the best bullpen in baseball. Just getting to that bullpen is a concern. So, for me, I have the Dodgers winning this one. I'm gonna say we'll go 4-2 for the Dodgers, but it hurts me to admit that the Dodgers are that good, but it is just the truth for me. So I'm gonna have the Dodgers winning the series 4-2. That's gonna be your World Series champion for me.
I'm looking at it in the way of I feel like the Phillies and the Dodgers, if it matches up the way I have it going, the winner of that's going to be kind of the World Series champion. It's like the winner of this wins the whole thing. I think the Dodgers are a worse matchup for the Guardians, but the Phillies aren't exactly a walk in the park. So I
Yeah,
think the Phillies are also going to be a problem for them. And like you mentioned, I think it'll be difficult for the Guardians to get that to that bullpen unless Jose Ramirez is like, okay, I'll get my 40 and 40 during this playoff run and is going absolutely insane. And Steven Kwan's back hitting 4.25 batting average or something. They'd have to play their best of the season right now, and Phillies would have to play like 75% of themselves, I think. So I'm going to take the Phillies in a 4-2 as well. I think the Guardians are right there, and any of these other teams besides those two, really any other two teams in the playoffs besides those two, I think they match up pretty well against. Like if they could play the Yankees in the World Series, if we could like just change it so they could do that, I think they have a chance there. If they could play just about anybody else besides the Dodgers or the Phillies. And I picked the Phillies as my preseason pick, so I'm going to stick with that too. Since my other one is already out. Thank you, Baltimore. So we'll go
yeah.
Phillies 4-2.
Any left-handed power team, like if you have a heavy left-handed power hit situation, Cleveland becomes a easy home run field for them. And that's what's concerning is both Philly and LA. I know Castellanos is not a left-handed hitter, but they got Bryce Harper. They got 4 or 5 other bats that hit from the left side that there are concerns of them just hitting a pop fly that sells 365 feet out into those stands, into those standing room only bar room seats. Um, it's hard to think that the Guardians, if they get there, that they have enough to get to hold on. And it's nothing against them. They've been plagued by injuries from literally game 2 of this season when they lost their number 1 starter for the season. And if that's a different story, if that's a different conversation we're having right here, where they have a healthy pitching staff all season, I have a different answer to this question of who wins. But yeah, for me, I'm the same as you. I just think it's hard to go up against either one of these matchups that we have them in a series, in a World Series matchup that you just, oof, not going to be easy. Not with a struggling pitching rotation.
That being said, if somehow the Braves go on a run and get to the World Series or the Mets, I think the Guardians could take out either one of those two teams. So I think if
Yeah.
just about anyone else comes out of the NL for sure.
I
But
think the Padres too. I think it'd be the same thing if the Padres make it. I think the Padres or the Brewers, if they match up against, let's say, the Guardians, that's a completely different story. The Guardians pull that out.
exactly. It's unfortunately the two monstrosities at the top is just a pain and difficult with. Weirdly enough, I feel like the Yankees against one of those two teams would actually, with my kid, it's the same results. I feel like one of those two teams is walking with the World Series regardless. That feels like the 1A and the 1B, whichever way you want to slice it for sure. So, assuming nobody gets in the way first, that's the matchup we'll be looking for. So, everyone, let us know down below what your thoughts are on the World Series, on the MLB postseason, and who you think is going to end up playing in the World Series. And let us know too if you have any surprises, any upsets, anything like that. But